They told my son there wasn't a place for him at the table. Not a chair, not a plate, not even a spot near the recycling bin. My name is Lauren, and wherever you're watching or listening from, stay right here with me. Have you ever had to witness the people you love push your child aside? As if he'd never belonged to the family at all? It was Christmas Eve. I was still in my scrubs, hands tired, mind running on fumes after back-to-back emergencies at County General. Another 16-hour shift. Another holiday surrendered to duty. But I wasn't worried. My parents had promised they'd take care of him, that he'd feel the warmth of family even if I couldn't be there. He texted me once. Only once. "Mom, they said there's no spot left for me. I'm coming home." I thought he was teasing until I glanced at the clock. 6:43 p.m. Dinner had just begun, and my only child, my quiet, thoughtful, soft-spoken boy, was already driving through the cold December night back to an empty house. No lights on, no meal waiting, no one expecting him. I stared at my phone, numb. I called him. No answer. I called my sister. She picked up. Laughter exploded in the background. "Oh, come on, Lauren. He's 16, not a toddler. He can survive one Christmas dinner alone." Then she hung up. No apology, no hesitation, just cruelty disguised as casual honesty. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat beside him on the couch, microwaving cheap macaroni while he pretended the whole thing didn't sting. But I saw it, in how he kept his eyes on the TV, in how he said, "It's fine," before I even opened my mouth. So I didn't cry. I didn't rant. I poured 2 glasses of sparkling apple cider and told him, "Don't worry, baby. They'll remember this Christmas." Not the way they imagined. Because sometimes revenge doesn't look like screaming or throwing things. Sometimes it looks like a tired mother printing something important at 2:12 in the morning. And by dawn, they found a letter taped to their front door wreath. By 8:45 a.m., the calls started. By 9:02, my sister was shrieking through the phone. All I said was, "Oh, you read it. Good." Because that letter wasn't paper. It was a mirror. And facing their own reflection was the punishment. The letter stretched to 3 full pages, calmly typed, almost overly polite, and signed with one name, mine. It opened with a memory. Christmas 2012, when you told my son he was too little to help decorate the tree, then handed the star to Lily's toddler because she was adorable. Christmas 2016, when you forgot his name on a gift tag and wrote "Lauren's kid" with a Sharpie. Christmas 2019, when you made him take the group photo, then posted "family all together" without him in the photo. I wasn't dramatic, I was precise. A decade of tiny betrayals laid out like medical charts. Then came page 2. Legal terms. Clean, sharp, unemotionally final. Effective immediately, the deed to the Vermont family cabin was being transferred solely into my name. The refinancing they signed last March without reading, trusting me, the responsible one. Effective immediately, the $12,000 in property taxes I'd covered for their house, still unpaid, was being collected with interest. Effective immediately, the family vacation fund I'd been bankrolling for almost a decade was dissolved. Refunds reversed, cards canceled. And at the bottom, "Do not contact my son until you can treat him like a human being. Until then, you're blocked." I ignored every call, every voicemail, even when my sister texted, "You're petty over one night." Because it wasn't one night. It was every night, every holiday, every slight. Every year they chipped away at him. Every time he sat at the kids' table while their kids got private bedrooms and applause. Every glare when he asked to say grace. Every forgotten birthday. Every cheap, thoughtless gift. I gave them years to see him. They chose not to. And now, for the first time, they were forced to. By New Year's Eve, the silence was louder than the fireworks. They never expected the letter, or the fallout. Definitely not the court notice on December 30th telling them the grandchildren's trust fund had a new trustee. They tried to call my bluff. I wasn't bluffing. For years, I paid for holidays, trips, matching pajamas, groceries, bills, only to watch them crop my son out of every family photo. Now they were scrambling. My father sent a voice note. "Lauren, you're being dramatic. Let's talk like adults." My sister sent a scroll-length message broken into 5 parts, calling it a misunderstanding. She blamed the full table, blamed her husband, blamed my job stress. But I wasn't foggy. I was clear, clearer than ever. My son said nothing through all of it, didn't ask me to undo it, didn't ask for revenge. But when I told him what I'd done, how I moved every shared account into a private trust under his name, he whispered, "Thank you for choosing me." That's when I knew this wasn't revenge. It was repair. Repairing the cracks they put in him. Repairing the part of me that stayed silent for years. Repairing the boundary between being their daughter and being his mother. Blood might be thicker than water, but respect is the real currency of family, and they ran out a long time ago. So I didn't just cut them off, I gave them what they gave him. A holiday alone. No cabin, no calls, no help. And when my sister posted a New Year's photo, things looked different. No matching pajamas, no curated smiles, just 3 adults sitting around a half-eaten dinner and an empty chair in the corner. Poetic, right? The people who never made space for him, suddenly surrounded by emptiness. They showed up on January 3rd. 3 knocks on my door. Sharp, desperate, familiar. I opened it. My sister stood there with a pie in her hands. A pie. Like this was some sitcom apology. My parents hovered behind her, stiff and uncomfortable. "We just want to talk," my sister said. I didn't let them in. I stepped outside and shut the door behind me. My son was inside, safe, protected. "We were wrong," my mom began, but he should have said something if he felt excluded. I blinked at her. He was 16. You were the adults. Then I asked the question they weren't prepared for. "What exactly are you apologizing for?" They froze. They wanted tears, yelling, something messy they could call dramatic, not accountability. "You're being unforgiving," my dad muttered. "Family is family." I smiled. "No, family is action." I handed them a folder. Inside, the documents proving I'd removed their names from every shared asset. Cabin, trust, vacation fund, gone. "I'm not doing this to be cruel," I said. "I'm doing this because kindness without consequences is just enabling." My sister's mouth tightened. "What about forgiveness?" I leaned closer. "I forgave you years ago. You mistook it for weakness." Then I nodded toward the car waiting at the curb. "You can keep the pie. It's the only thing left you brought that doesn't harm." I turned, walked back inside. Behind me, my son stood in the hallway. He looked up at me and asked, "Are they gone?" I nodded. He exhaled. And in that moment, I realized something. Sometimes protecting your child means becoming the storm. Not the calm, not the healer, but the reckoning. And when love is real, it doesn't ask for a seat at the table. It builds its own. 2 weeks passed. No calls, no visits, just silence. Bitter, hollow silence from the people who once never stopped asking for favors. But the town talked. Oh, they always talk. Especially when a nice family like mine suddenly cancels their annual winter retreat. Especially when their accounts freeze and their pictures vanish from the cabin's Airbnb listing. They spun stories, of course. My sister told her friends I was having a breakdown. My mom whispered I'd gone rogue after too many night shifts. But my dad told the church I was just dealing with trauma and would come to my senses eventually. But no one mentioned the boy they'd forgotten, the boy who drove home alone on Christmas night, with a smile still painted on just to protect me. They erased him from the narrative again. So I did something they didn't expect. I wrote a letter, this time for the world. I posted it on my private blog. No names, no slander, just truth. On Christmas night, my teenage son was turned away from the table where he should have been welcomed with open arms. He ate alone in a cold house, while laughter echoed from a room he wasn't allowed to enter. This isn't about revenge, it's about awareness. Silence can look like strength, but sometimes it's just inherited pain. And I'm done passing that down. It went viral. Thousands of comments, messages from strangers, other mothers, other daughters, people who'd sat beside trash cans, been cropped out of photos, or walked home from celebrations where their names were never said aloud. And somewhere in that digital crowd, they saw it too. Because my sister deleted her Instagram, my mom turned off her Facebook, my dad asked me to take the post down. But I didn't, because truth doesn't come with a dimmer switch. Once you shine it, the shadows run. And maybe that's what they needed to feel what it's like to be on the outside looking in. To finally understand what my son had endured, not for one night, but every holiday, birthday, and family photo for 16 years. And if that truth made them uncomfortable, good. Growth always starts in discomfort. And I wasn't raising my son to make anyone else comfortable. I was raising him to know his worth, even if it meant burning down the table he was never invited to sit at. The fire had been lit, and not just online. At school, teachers pulled my son aside, not to pity him, but to say they saw him now, that they never realized he carried so much with so little complaint. He just nodded, quiet as ever. But when we got home, he handed me something. It was a Christmas card drawn by hand, a sketch of our tiny living room, that lonely night, microwave meals and all, and across the bottom in gold marker, "Best Christmas Ever." I cried, not because it was the best, but because that boy, he had taken pain, abandonment, rejection, and still found something beautiful in the ashes. Meanwhile, the cracks in my parents' polished lives were beginning to show. I got a call from the Vermont town clerk's office. Apparently, my parents tried to file a dispute over the cabin deed. They were told firmly that all documents were airtight, legally sound, and fully executed. Then came the call from my sister's husband. They were declined for a mortgage pre-approval. Why? Because the line of credit they used for years under my name had been revoked. Consequences. Real ones. I wasn't shouting. I wasn't storming their house. I was simply doing what they never expected. Stepping out of the role they wrote for me. No longer the peacekeeper, no longer the dependable doormat. I was the mother of a boy who deserved better than their traditions of conditional love. And the most painful part? They still didn't get it. They kept calling it a feud, a rift, something fixable. But it wasn't, because this wasn't a disagreement. It was a reckoning, a closing of accounts, emotional, financial, generational. They'd mistaken my silence for acceptance, my reliability for permission, and my kindness for compliance. But the truth is, kindness is not the absence of boundaries. It's the courage to protect what's sacred, and this year, the only thing sacred was my son's peace. No more table scraps, no more maybe next year, no more begging for a seat in rooms we helped build. This time, we weren't knocking on their door, we were locking ours. 3 weeks after the letter, the final shoe dropped. A certified envelope arrived from my father's accountant. It was a desperate attempt, a poorly worded offer to revisit arrangements regarding the family estate. Translation: they realized just how much they depended on me all these years. The cabin maintenance? That was me. The accountant's retainer fee? Me. Even the prepaid funeral plan for both my parents? That was my signature on the check. They never noticed because I never asked for applause. I just did it quietly. But now the silence was working against them. They begged for meetings, mailed apology cards, one even written in my mother's handwriting, shaky and uncertain. And for the first time in my life, I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, just a stillness I'd never known. Peace born from clarity. Because forgiveness doesn't always come with reconnection. Sometimes it comes with release. So I wrote back one last time, a single sentence. You cannot ask to inherit the fruits of love you never watered. No signature, no warmth, just truth. That same night, I took my son out for dinner. A real dinner. Linen napkins, soft jazz, sparkling cider, and real flutes. He wore a shirt he picked himself, a little wrinkled, but perfect. As we waited for dessert, he looked around and asked, "Why are people looking at us?" I smiled. They're not used to seeing peace, real peace, the kind that doesn't shout, the kind that doesn't ask for permission. He grinned, and for the first time I saw it. He wasn't just healing, he was glowing, because he had finally been shown what it meant to be chosen, to be protected, to be seen. Not tolerated, not accommodated. Seen. And in that moment, I realized something I wish I'd known years ago. We waste too much time trying to fit into families that only love versions of us that keep them comfortable. But real love, fierce, unconditional, inconvenient love, doesn't ask you to shrink. It asks you to stand. And that night, across from me, my son stood taller than I'd ever seen. Not because of revenge, but because I finally made space for him where no one could take it away. February came, quiet and gray, but in our home something had shifted. My son laughed more. He asked questions again about colleges, about road trips, about life. He even taped his drawing, the best Christmas ever, one on the fridge like a badge of honor. We were building something not out of spite, but out of truth, out of the wreckage of people who once claimed to love us, but only ever loved their version of silence. Then, one morning, I got an email from the local community center. Subject line, holiday volunteer, thank you. They were thanking my son. He'd signed up on his own, quietly, to serve meals on Valentine's Day for people who had nowhere to go. I stared at the email. Tears filled my eyes. He didn't just survive what they did, he grew from it. He turned absence into empathy and cold shoulders into open hands. That night, I sat him down, told him the whole truth. How I used to make excuses for them, how I silenced myself just to be invited, how I confused proximity with love, and that confusion ended the moment they closed the door on him. He didn't say much, he just nodded, then said, "It's okay, Mom, you made sure I didn't carry it forward." And that was everything. Because cycles don't end in explosions, they end in choices. And I chose to end ours the moment they chose a holiday photo over a human heart. I've learned that not everyone who shares your blood is your family, and not every door deserves to be kept open. Some must be locked, some must be walked away from, and some must be burned down so that your child can see that love doesn't beg, it stands. It protects. It says, "Not my son. Not this time." And it rebuilds, not with tradition, but with truth. So no,
they'll never sit at my table again. But every time my son laughs, every time he holds his head higher, every time he chooses kindness even after cruelty, that's the justice. That's the revenge. And that's the legacy I leave behind.